The year 40,000 is an uncertain time. Chaos invasions,
Oh no.
Primarchs returning, Xenos threat mounting.
Shit.
It's enough to keep you up at night. You probably toss and turn into the small hours, wondering to yourself,
Shouldn't someone put together a comprehensive list of threats to the Empire?
and whilst our politicians play knob swords in the towers of power, it is up to the adequate minds at the Large Blast podcast to answer these big questions. Because in this LBP investigation, we are going to answer, what is the biggest threat to the Imperium of Man? In order to make our investigation unbiased, we decided to use 2 randomly selected Warhammer fans from anywhere in the universe, using our own Large Blast podcast computer. The first guy was coincidentally called Matt, and he had concerns about the future of the Imperium of Man.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's pretty screwed, isn't it? But I kind of feel like there's hope, actually, because the Imperium has been screwed for 10,000 years.
The second randomly selected Warhammer fan was all the way from South Korea, and although he wouldn't give his name, he assured us that it was not on the run from some kind of Warhammer loan shark.
안녕하세요. Fluent in Korean now, mate. I can say hello and thank you badly.
The shocking revelations uncovered in these interviews are not for the faint of heart. They reveal an Imperium divided and grumpy, but can this Imperium's grumpy divisions be healed? Or is it too late?
I kind of wanted to just have a rethink of where we are, because we're now in the, what are they calling it now? The 41st? It's the 42nd millennium. The date system is now into the far future, further beyond what the whole brand says it is. It's no longer 40k. And the stuff that is happening in the lore is sort of changing at an ever increasing rate, really. I mean, we're about to see Fulgrim, aren't we?
Any day now, I hear.
Yeah. We've been building up to it. And I guess, I mean, you know, you could start with the idea of a 4th Chaos Primarch coming out into the model range. I mean, that's pretty dangerous. I don't know. Like, he's almost is he the worst one out of all of them? Angron's pretty mental.
The most corrupted Primarch. I mean, it's hard to say, really, isn't it? Because I think that one of the problems that you like when Fulgrim comes back, obviously he's going to present a problem. But Slanesh's problem has always been their vanity, isn't it? It's like with Lucius the Eternal or one of these kind of guys, is there'd probably be a lot more of a threat if they could get it together and stop, like, you know, trying on wigs and different face powders or something, spending all their time doing something like that, you know, powdering their ass.
Dildos.
Well, Stoney, I know you come to me live from across the world to get my views, mainly on Xenos things. So should we just run through a list of some of the things I think are the biggest Xenos-based threats to the Imperium? The biggest threat, Stoney, before we go into other weird ones, it's got to be the Tyranids, right?
So, yeah, I mean, they've got to be a big one.
I think forever the Imperium's been battling the Tyranids, and I'll be interested to see what Matt's take from the Imperium side is, because they are on the verge of the Sol system now. I mean, the 10th edition launch box lore, those tendrils are coming very, very close to Terra. And I mean, you read the lore and it seems like the Imperium are winning because they only ever tell stories from the winning side. But when you zoom out and look at that galactic map, it's not looking good for the Imperium. And that's just the Tyranids doing their own thing. There's no other race really. Well, I mean, there are some races, but if you think about the scale of where all of those tendrils are coming in, completely different points in the galaxy, compare that to the Tau, which are literally just fighting on like one front. The Tyranids are everywhere all at once, and it's massive. And I was thinking that maybe a bigger threat than just Tyranids is if some rogue Inquisitor starts looking into how to control them. Imagine like directing Tyranids becomes something that's manageable by either the Imperium or by any other race, or God forbid Chaos.
Yeah, I mean that's the other side to Chaos is that, and I guess this goes into somebody's calculation at Games Workshop HQ, is that if they throw in another Chaos Primarch, we all know he's out there, so bringing out a new model isn't really that big of a deal, really. But does it actually help to equalize the threat of the Imperium the threat to the Imperium, because there's now a Primarch for every Chaos God. So they just fight amongst themselves. I don't know.
But does this become a thing where it's like the Primarchs themselves are kind of an issue? Because obviously, like, Fulgrim is definitely coming out. I mean, we've been saying it for years, but like we can at least because he is the last Chaos God to come out. So it would be any Imperial Primarch that was to return would be a surprise. Now, whereas like obviously Fulgrim is kind of it's fate. It's gonna happen. We've been saying it's gonna happen, and it will happen. But like, it almost be so? But would the appearance of any Primarch be a shake-up, be a danger to either side, really? Because like obviously, if Fulgrim comes back, the Chaos Gods love fighting each other. So in many ways, that's another enemy for them as well. Just like exactly. if the Khan came back or something for the Imperium, he might be like, hang on, I don't like what's going on here, and sort of shake things up there. They need to all be like pulling in the same direction. Any Primarch in a way is a danger.
I think you may have accidentally made the point, and I would certainly make the point that actually a Chaos Primarch returning isn't a big deal, but another Imperial Primarch, a Loyalist Primarch, is a big deal, because that could, like you said about the Khan, that could really fuck shit up.
Really could.
We've spoken a while about this Civil War thing. There's and all the other rumors with the Yellow Man, or whatever he's called, the Man in Yellow,
King in Yellow,
the King in Yellow, yeah. Like the Loyalists actually could really cause some issues, and they kind of gone very quiet on the Lion. Like the Lion appeared, and there was like 2 or 3 books and some bit of random lore where he was high in a forest. and then everyone started moaning about it, and they didn't really bring any other stuff out. But
that's come on, that's what we should expect from any Primarch release, though. Really, is like a couple of random appearances that nothing really changes. Getting lost in the woods, having vague visions of wolves and shit. And my name is the Bemperor, and I have appeared to you in the dream. Oh God, it turned out I was the Emperor the whole time.
You say that, but I mean, I guess that's why they had to come in a bit weaker, because the Gulliman's return was actually pretty big in the lore. Like it, compared to all of the Primarchs returning, he has had, including Chaos, he has had the biggest impact, because he's basically retaken over the Imperium. He's created the Primaris Marine. He's done he's done more influence on the 40k universe than he did in the 30k universe.
That is true, yeah.
At this point, we could start to see a division in our two subjects. Whilst Matt was thinking of the Primarchs like a good Imperial citizen, this mysterious Korean man couldn't get Xenos off his mind.
I don't actually think orcs are a big threat unless the war gets so massive that it can't be contained. The problem with orcs is they're like whack-a-mole, right? They do some crazy orc tech stuff. They appear in bits of space. They have a little war, and then they simmer down again. But the only example we've got of someone directing Tyranids is that Cryptman fella who sent all the Tyranids into orc space, and they've just been fighting and consuming and fighting and consuming. So now there's this huge, big war developing that's just literally been gaining energy and gaining men who want to come and have a scrap with the Tyranids, and then the Tyranids eat the orcs and the biomass gets bigger. So you've got this like positive feedback loop that maybe there is an orc war there that will be big enough, with Ghazghkull getting more and more powerful, to actually cause a threat to the Imperium. I don't know what you think about
that. If the orcs were responsible for the death of the universe, I kind of feel like it's because one of them would accidentally made a bomb so big that they blew themselves up or something like that, rather than they I'm sure that they would be up for a scrap on Earth, but they're up for it more like an away football game than as a long-running term plan.
I think they can be easily distracted. I think if they're going towards Terra and you move all of your weaponry off of Terra and all of your infantry off Terra to a different planet, they probably just go to that one instead.
It's Wile E. Coyote
they're
style
easily
tactics
tricked.
with the orcs. They're coming for you. You paint like a tunnel on the side of another planet. They go towards that.
Yeah,
It's drop an anvil on their head style tactics. I should imagine that whatever general's in charge of the dealing with the orcs, it's pretty wacky in his office. There's probably loads of spring-loaded jack-in-the-boxes, like with holding sticks of dynamite. Give that to the orcs as a present. This kind of thing. Guns with bang written inside. All kinds of stuff like that. I reckon.
yeah. I'm not sure. Notice how I haven't mentioned a particular Xenos race, Stoney.
Which race would that be?
The fish camels.
Oh yes, of course, the Tau. Yeah, no, I don't feel like they're a massive threat. But yeah, I mean, what? No, I mean, I couldn't even think of them when we were talking about this. It's like, no, what's it? What, in danger of making the universe smell like fish and camel shit? No, I don't think so.
I mean, for one thing, it's not the Tau. Let's
Oh,
just
yeah.
but the Tau
yeah, they're
sort
very,
of
very
bottom
low
of the
tier.
bottom.
Yeah.
They're not even on the list.
No, they probably don't even know where Earth is. I don't think they're just
No.
happy doing their own thing.
Yeah.
But
And
what do we think about the Tau in terms of because the Tower are strong because of their ability to bring other people to their cause. Do we think that the Tau could be dangerous as corrupting fort more than being a military might? Could they sneak their way into the Imperium that way?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you just have to Google what do they call the Gunshave or whatever they call humans, like the human auxiliaries.
Mm,
People. I'm sure at one point they had like an army list, or they had like a unit thing in White Dwarf. This is a long time ago,
yeah,
but
yeah, I remember this. You could
yeah,
kind of take
and that,
Imperial Guard, sort of,
yeah,
couldn't
and
you?
paint
Yeah,
them. People
yeah.
painting them like fire warriors, and like
Mhm.
I did think I used to quite like that. Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. But
Mm.
and in the lore, they do sort of take over planets, but it's like five imperial worlds in a millennium, and it's
Yeah,
like it's sure if you live on that planet, then it's a threat to you. But in terms of like comparing what damage that does compared to like a Tyranid invasion,
yeah, no,
it's,
definitely.
it's but yeah, maybe give him enough time.
Maybe they
And there
can
was that
turn.
whole Farsight thing that he got the Chaos Tau, Traitor Tau.
Oh.
The only thing I thought that might be Tau related is what if the Tau fall to chaos
Mm.
somehow? I don't know how. There's nothing in the law to say that could happen. Although there's kind of rumored stuff, but I think the Tau are much more likely to have their own civil war. Again, Imperium saved
Mm.
by civil war plot armor. Farsight overthrows the Ethereals and they fight each other than them ever really being a threat to the Imperium as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Again, I mean, like their one thing going for them is that they are very happy to recruit quote unquote other people. So maybe if they ran into some the next up and coming Tyranids, got that early or something like that, then they might become a threat. As kind of the B side to another more successful species. But yeah, I can't. It's hard to imagine them. But then I don't even know if that's what their goals are about. Is that what they want to do? Do they want to take over Terra? Have they ever even been to Terra?
It's like their millionth sphere expansion, the rate they're going.
Yeah, exactly. They're not. Yeah, they can't be that into that.
They've just got their own bit of space, and to be honest, they could probably
Hmm.
just be left alone, and it'd all be all right.
Probably. Maybe if they came to Terra, they'd see camels and fish for the first time and be like, "Fuck!" They'd be like, find like
Oh,
those
no,
like
this is where we come
ancient alien carvings on the wall or something, and be like, "Oh
This is
man,
what the Imperials
this
have
was the
protected
real
us
home
from."
planet."
So maybe the Tau are gonna have some sort of civil war, and they'll be way too preoccupied
Yeah.
to interest them. And there's been loads more stuff with the model ranges for the crew.
Hmm.
And I'm sure, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I'm sure there's been like, to me anyway, I'm picking up on like the insinuation that the crew are starting to sort of raise their head a little higher and think like, why are we doing what the Tau tell us to? You know, they're a bit more independent than we thought, and that we've spoken about that many times. The Kroot, that would be quite an interesting.
But even
avenue.
then, I don't think, you know, I mean, they've got like muskets and loincloths on. I don't think they're coming for Earth, you know. I think
no, but that'll diminish. That'll just diminish what the tower can do. They'll just be doing their own thing, like kind of like the orcs. Like the orcs are always the one that we go back through every rule book where it says if they all work together, they'd be able to take the galaxy, but they can't because they just fight each other. But they're still like a massive threat. But
I don't think that they want to, you know, really.
Yeah.
They kind of enjoy it as it is.
If they won, they'd have nothing to do. They'd just fight amongst themselves. At least, well, they could all fight the beakies.
Yeah. I still think that every time we have one of these discussions, we always come to the sort of idea that basically the orcs are just living their best life and everybody else is just kind of being a dickhead. So like,
they're having the best time in 40k.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but how dangerous do you think they are? So let's go back to this tier list, imaginary tier list system. They're above the Tau, I would say, but probably below like Gene Stealers. Below Tyranids.
Yeah, they're sort of mid-tier. That sounds crazy, but they are. Like I don't even know. They'd be like tied with Chaos, maybe, for me. I don't know.
But what do you think about the Nids?
The funny thing with the Tyranids is that we sort of don't know what time frame they're on. Like there's obviously a new Hive fleet. We assume there's more, but there might not be more. I know that sounds like I mean, there will be more because it's going to be written in the law.
Sure.
But like in terms of the Imperium, like looking at itself and saying like, what's the biggest threat? The stuff that they are being killed by is the threat, and they don't know that could be the last of the Tyranids, and they've defeated them.
I mean, that's just it. Is like, I mean, you're definitely right. As in because the origins of the Tyranids are unknown, we don't really know. I mean, is it like you say, like a hose pipe of Tyranids that's gradually depleting some far off well, or is it just kind of like, or is it just gonna, or are they just gonna kind of continue to go? Is this just the starting trickle of the hose pipe, or is this the dying trickles of the hose pipe, you know?
Yeah, if this is the beginning, then oh my god.
Buckle up for safety, buckle up. Buckle up for safety, always buckle up. Pull your seatbelt snug, give an extra tug. Buckle up for safety, buckle up.
Start with Votan, because are they really Xenos? I'm sure Matt's not going to even consider the Votan, but I thought the fact they're dicking around with AI in these ancestor cores is potentially quite troubling for people of the Imperium.
Yeah. And you know what? They're kind of sneaky, because I'd forgotten all about those bastards. Like I always do. The Votans really did just disappear to me. Like I haven't seen anything about them recently. So yeah, that's sneaky. You know that maybe they are the next kind of Gene Stealer cults, the bad seed in the cuckoo's nest.
It would be cool if they turn out to be really anti-Imperium after all these years of kind of trading. I know they get into scraps every now and then, but there's so much secretive stuff about them. I mean, we don't even understand the lore on the Life Blast podcast. We've delved into it multiple times, and I couldn't tell you what's going on in Votan space, other than they've got some AI, and we know that that's ended badly before. Maybe it'll end badly again.
So we're saying AI is the biggest threat to the future in 40k?
No, I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget to mention Votan.
The little miners. What are they called?
The Voltans.
The Voltans, they're just like Tau. They're Tau level of nothing.
They're lower than Tau. Who gives a fuck about them? I don't even remember what half of them do.
Yeah.
I think that, but aren't they? They're on the, actually, now we talk about it, they're on the human side though, aren't they? They're kind of.
Yeah, that as well. They sort of appeared from nowhere. There was like a few things they tried to put into the lore, and then it's all sort of.
It's so funny. It's like they tried to flesh out the Squat's lore, and no one gave a fuck. It's just like they basically made it exactly the same. No one cares. So enough of the fucking around. It was time to ask Matt the burning question. What does he think the biggest threat to the Imperium of mankind is?
The Gene Stealers on Terra. I think that is, for me, probably the biggest problem of the 99 problems the Imperium's facing. Like, because that is, we've done so many episodes and things like the Astronomicon and the Golden Throne and the weird shit about the Emperor. What if the Emperor dies? But like, there's actually a Xenos threat on the homeworld.
Right on the doorstep.
They're in the house.
Yeah,
they're in the house, Stoney.
I know, right?
It's
like, I don't know about you. It's like if you ever had like a big spider escape in your bedroom and you're like you can't find it, and then you're like, "Fuck, I don't know where it is." That's what kind of like what it feels like for those guys in Earth, right?
Oh, totally. And spiders only fall on your face when you're lying in bed, and it's pitch black, and you flick it. Have you done that before? And you like flick it off your face, and then you're like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, you feel something.
Where
happen.
is it?
Definitely, yeah. You feel something happen, something moving. You feel delicious earwig creeping in your ear to eat your brains.
I mean, let's face it, there are problems everywhere, and the problems are getting worse. But at the same time, Games Workshop has thrown in a bit of hope. The Imperium is kind of already split in two, could get split in two. But I mean, like I say,
surely that's something that in a way, the Imperium has over Chaos. It's more unified, I guess. That is an advantage that it has.
I would, in my tier of problems, I think Chaos would be like middle to bottom.
Yeah, I agree. They've been banging that same drum for a while now, haven't they?
Yeah.
But what about so what do we think about Vashtor? Because he is new. What about if he came more into power and made the kind of Dark Mechanicum type thing happen or something like that? How big of a threat would he be?
I mean, I guess he's on the, you could say he's on the fringe of Chaos. So I'd still probably throw him into that comment of like mid-tier. There's this funny, there's a funny disconnect with the lore that's pumped out from Games Workshop and the lore that's pumped out from Black Library. In Black Library, there's always been the Dark Mechanicum exist.
Yeah.
But you can't buy a model of them. But they exist. They exist in the lore.
Yeah.
They're a big threat. I mean, I guess Games Workshop would, if they did bring out more of the Dark Mech as a range, then they would be more in the forefront, which would imply that they were a bigger threat because they were kind of out there more. Anything that Games Workshop is selling is more in the limelight, isn't it?
Definitely.
But like,
well, they're at least going to bash out a couple of books just to sort of flesh out what they do, and then before the writers can get back to getting on with the the stuff that they care about. And
the Imperium nearly loses, lots of people and things get destroyed, and then somehow the Imperium wins.
Yeah, basically.
I would say actually the interesting thing about Vashtor and the potential, if they did have a dark mech, what are they called? Yeah, the Dark Mechanicum. The Dark Mechanicum. If they did have a range, like I say, like really, to me, in the lore, that wouldn't be a massive thing. I mean, Vashtor's new, okay, but like I say, Dark Mechanicus isn't. So if they appeared, it wouldn't be like, oh my god, because it's not really that new. But yeah, with Vashtor, and now the fact that they have split the Imperium in two, the thing that could be big and new within the last few years, because the laws changed so much, is it could be that the Dark Mechanicum really, really takes over a lot of the Dark Imperium, the Imperium Secundus, and then suddenly you've got like half a galaxy that they can like really dominate. And in that way, that's where the Games Workshop lore and the Black Library lore has kind of moved on, and then maybe they join together. Like if you go back 10 years ago, all of this stuff apart from Vashtor was in the lore. We had less Primarchs, but like the Imperium was everywhere mostly, and Chaos would just sort of pop up. But now it's like, because they've split the Imperium in half, that actually means that they can threaten the weaker half, and if they could not take over the whole thing, but like literally mean that they can like dominate that bit of the galaxy, then suddenly chaos could actually have its own area. Like it's
Yeah,
a bit
sure.
of like,
I think that
yeah,
it's kind of funny because the more we're talking about chaos, the more I sort of feel like there's chaos as in like Abaddon and his army, where he's kind of like he's got way more of a defined cause and like and he's got people kind of working for him and planning and stuff. And then there's chaos, the kind of the like we say the Primarchs and the gods that are a bit more just like fart around over here, fart around over there, and kind of they've got their own things going on. But I feel that like actually, like you say, if Fulgrim came out, he'd probably just be fucking around in space doing whatever, sucking his own dick or whatever. Whereas like if it was like
yeah,
Abaddon's trying to like get armies together and invade Terra, so he's maybe he is a bigger threat, I would say, than any of the
yeah,
Primarchs really.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's up there with Horus in terms of like direct uh, a traditional threat to the Imperium,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, the Fulgrims. There's more than one. The Primarchs, they're just
Yeah.
like a distraction. Yeah.
Mm.
But I guess, in terms of like new lore, they can't really go much further with Abaddon. Like he's had his big launch. Yeah, maybe Vashtor and the Dark
Mm.
Canicus could offer like an
He can
interesting
add a bit of
interesting
extra
route.
zest to there.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
getting a
yeah.
bit boring now. Let's face it. The chaos stuff is kind of like, it's they're kind of becoming a bit like who's that guy, Dick Dastardly, where it's like in the cartoon, he's always going to slip on a banana peel at the end. Like
Okay.
you say, the
Yeah, yeah,
Imperium are
yeah.
always going to win by some
Yeah.
MacGuffin at the very end, even after getting their ass kicked. They're going to
Yeah,
manage
yeah.
to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, like once again somehow. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like, and there's only so far that kind of like moustache twiddling villainry can take you. It's kind of time, like if Vashtor could like shake things up.
Well, you mentioned that, and that's kind of like they have sort of gone down a little bit of that route with that Necromunda stuff, haven't they? With the
Mm,
the dodgy tech priest model, the
yeah,
one that's sort of experimenting with the Xenos.
that's true.
That's
He's
that's
got
quite interesting.
yeah.
It's a kind of breakaway. So not dark mech, but
Mm.
like alternative ad mech.
But when we asked our anonymous Korean friend the same question, what did he think the biggest threat to mankind was? His answer both shocked and surprised us.
I think potentially Necrons are currently the biggest threat to the Imperium because there are so many of them.
But a Necron's not like a little bit like the Orcs. They're very organized, as in each of their generals has a pretty decent army and all the rest of it. But there's a lot of infighting in the Necron society, isn't there? Like they don't seem to be like all working together.
Yeah, I think that is. I think you've hit the nail on the head of everything there. Although the Necrons have so much weaponry and so much power and so much, they're all over the universe. They can do crazy things that the Imperium can't even imagine. Infighting is the nail on the head to all of this, I think. And it's the plot armor that saves the Imperium over and over and over and over again in 40k history is that if there wasn't infighting within these factions or between these factions, and we ever did get some proper anti-Imperium team up, I think that's the biggest threat to the Imperium. It only takes a proper Chaos Necron team up. It only takes Vashtor going, oh, I'm the god of like mechanic stuff, and you guys are pretty mechanic. Let's team up and overthrow the Imperium of man, and the Imperium's fucked.
There's other Xenos, isn't there? The Necrons. I nearly forgot about the Necrons.
Of course, the Necrons.
I mean,
what do you think about the Necrons then?
What do you think about the Necrons?
I want to know what you think first because I've spoken to Welshie, remember? So
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
To be honest, I hadn't really thought about them until now. So let's just. So I mean, I can imagine what Welshie is going to say. Like he's going to point out about the Silent King, who's just returned to the galaxy. I think that's what's happened, and obviously there's more of them waking up, and they want to. Their stated aim is to retake the galaxy, which means, like Abaddon, their stated aim is the destruction of the Imperium. Whereas the other things we've spoken about are just more chaotic in how they're going about it. They have a vision, they have the means, they're increasingly having the ability, that they're probably learning about how to fight the Imperium. It's weird. Games Workshop has thrown in this. I mean, they seem to have thrown it into everyone. Like we've spoken about the Tau as well. Like this idea that they're fighting some kind of war with each other, where there's actually Necrons fighting other Necrons.
Yeah.
That's sort of appearing in the lore a bit more.
Yeah. There's definitely kind of politics that happens between Necrons. But I mean, so when I spoke to Welshie about the Necrons, he felt very strongly that the Necrons were like the biggest danger to the Imperium, and that they were going to be, the main threat. And I'm not so sure myself. I feel like they're in, to me, and I said this to Welshie as well, so interested to know what you think, but like they're in the same tier as like the Eldar, because I think that they just have different agendas.
I hadn't even thought about them either.
You hadn't even thought about that, exactly.
And another threat that I think is kind of the opposite, because there aren't many of them, but they are well organized, is the Eldar. And they're never really framed as like Imperium ending the Eldar. They're just going about their business in their own way. What do you think about Eldar? Do you think they are a threat to the Imperium as a whole?
I think, well, they're in a different sort of time in their empire in a way, aren't they? They're sort of licking their wounds after a big, after they were licking too much pussy, so now they've got to lick their own wounds after, creating Slanesh. So, they've got, they're at a different stage. I don't think they have the numbers. To be fair, I think if they had a big old army and stuff and a bit more oomph behind them, then they'd be a much bigger threat. And I don't think that they'd pass up the chance to fuck over the Imperium if they got the chance. But
No.
at the same time, they're maybe not the big. They're certainly not a bigger threat as the Tyranids, I would say.
No, definitely. The only thing I could think that came close to like Eldar potentially gaining an upper hand is if they manage to actually birth Inaid, their god of the dead. They're trying to collect enough souls in the infinity circuits, and if the infinity circuits join up with all of the souls of the dead Eldar, then Inaid, the new god of the dead, will be born. Maybe that gives them a boost, because they kind of say that all of the dead Eldar can be reborn. And if all of the dead Eldar suddenly come back to life, then the Imperium really does have a problem.
If each one of those soul stones turns into an Eldar, then yeah, we're really fucked, aren't we? But like they can do that thing as well, which the Eldar aren't big fans of, but they can kind of make their own AI guys, can't they? They can make those guys out of Wraithbone and like put a sort of a soul stone inside them. It's kind of like a soulless husk type thing, and it's sort of really frowned upon, but they can kind of do something like that, can't they? So
if they broke open like some infinity circuits and got like 1 million souls into those things, that'd be badass.
Yeah. But yeah,
and the Harlequins too as well. I think the Eldar only come back if their gods come back, because the Harlequins are always going on about Kegarak, the jester, laughing god. If he came back too, then maybe they get powerful enough.
I mean, I think in some ways the Eldar could be more of an ally, really, if the Imperium weren't so fucking intent on not dealing with any Xenos, because they are few in number. We have sort of fairly similar goals in terms of keeping out the other Xenos things. It wouldn't be the worst matchup in the world.
And Eldar are like below the Orcs.
They're on the Tau level.
They're like just above Tau for me. Yeah, like they're Eldar. I don't know. Like you said, that the Eldar and Necrons would click their fingers, and if they could, they'd remove the Imperium. I don't know if the Eldar would, because in a way, mankind is like mankind is like a flesh barrier for the Eldar, and they do sort of work when it benefits them, admittedly. Like they do sort of work with mankind. Like if having mankind has like billions upon billions upon billions of human shields that effectively the Eldar can manipulate, and they die instead of the Eldar. And if you remove that shield, then then
one thing we also talked about, which I think is quite interesting, is like this idea of diplomacy being a threat to mankind, but also mankind's lack of diplomacy, and that their refusal to like deal with other races. Because actually, if mankind teamed up with the Eldar, that would be a pretty formidable force. And it feels like there could be some leeway on the Eldar to join up with mankind, given push and a shove. But obviously, that would never fly. If if it was your first day as Prime Minister of mankind and you came like, I want to join the Eldar, you'd be up that fucking flagpole before you knew what was happening. So
that's diplomacy. That's a good point. Diplomacy, like the Imperium. It's almost like the Imperium's greatest threat is itself.
Yeah.
That it's complete it's complete lack of diplomacy and its inability to develop technology, and it's like, what's the other things that you described the Imperium? Like, it's so backward, like it's so
set in its ways.
Stubborn. It's stubbornness. Everything that at one time gave it its strength is now just becoming its weakness.
Yeah, exactly.
That's heretical. We've gone
too far. We're the biggest threat to mankind.
Now, it was at this time we started to see a rift between our two subjects. Their answers seemed to be going in two very different directions. And although young Matt seemed to be a good, wholesome Imperial boy, the mysterious man from Korea, we'll call him Koreany, had started to display what can only be described as heretical interest in Xenos.
So, Stoney, do you want to hear what I would do if I was a Necron Lord and I was trying to throw over the Imperium? Here's my, I don't know how many steps there are. 6 steps.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to hear it.
Okay, so step 1. Have a chat with Trazin and get him to release the pretty Fulgrim clone that he's got, who will absolutely hate the state of the Imperium. Remember, he's like pure Fulgrim. He's going to not like what's going on. It's not pretty, it's not shiny, it's not gold, it's not what Daddy wanted. And then, because that clone is loyal to Bile and the new men, he could lead Bile's new men from that side. So you've already started one front of war by just releasing a clone. That's step 1.
Mm-hmm.
Step 2, take the Catan shards that the Necron hold and put them back in the Dragon of Mars. So I'm talking infiltrate Mars, charge up the Void Dragon, and release it back into Mars.
Oh,
that
shit.
Wipes out the AdMech.
Get some Duracell batteries in that bastard.
Absolutely. Step 3, kidnap an Ethereal and work out how they control the Tau, because we know those Ethereal are up to no good. If you can suck out an Ethereal brain and work out how they're controlling the Tau, whether they're doing it by pheromone fuck.
Trazin's got to have an Imperial in his collection, you would have thought, hasn't he? He's probably got a couple. Maybe you could, go, whilst you're there getting Fulgrim out, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
I think Trazin is the key to this. You've got to keep Trazin happy if you're an Necron and you want to overthrow the galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
You can also release some Krorks, some Exodites, loads of Catan shards. You've got an entire Nid fleet that you could direct to a certain place. So, I think those are the first 3. Then I would use that big array thing that they've got, where they can like voodoo doll the entire galaxy.
Right.
And create a wormhole in the Cryptman system so that massive hive fleet fighting with the Orcs gets wormholed into the Sol system. Boom. Big time Orcs, big time Tyranids in the Sol system.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I would continue to increase the tensions between the AdMech and the Vashtor and just kind of slowly move to one side, let them fight it out. And then finally, Stoney, because we can't have a Xenos input without mention of these guys, I would cause a Hrud migration through the middle of the Sol system.
Of course, the Hrud.
To cause the Hrud to go directly through Terra on a migration.
The secret weapon to all of this, the Hrud. I'd forgotten about them.
Absolutely. Maybe on the way they could go through some Eldari space and really charge up those infinity circuits with some souls and birth an 8 at the same time. That's my 6-point plan to overthrowing the Emperor.
I should have known it was the fucking Farud this whole fucking time. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, I like the plan, but there's a lot of like you say, redirecting. Like is it maybe a bit short-sighted to be kind of like beefing up all these other armies just to destroy one?
Yeah, you might lose control of quite a lot of things when you.
The Harad are going to be the next dominant race in the universe at this rate. We were going to be enslaved by Harad.
You just set up a time loop. It just goes back to 30k. It just goes back to I was there the day Horus slew the Emperor, just over and over and over again.
Yeah,
some kind of entropic time loop. No, you're right. I'm not sure. The aim wasn't for the Necron to take charge. The aim was for to destroy the Imperium, right?
Okay. Well,
maybe another thing I had in my notes here was, could you release the destroyer curse into the Necron so that they all become destroyers?
Well, let's get a Harad on that golden throne, shall we, and see what happens from then on. So, with the revelation that heretics could be closer than we think, we here at the Large Blast podcast put together a foolproof aptitude test to help discover any bad apples in our mix. The test is a proven way to smoke out any bad faith actors and puts our test subjects in the shoes of a custode, taking part in the blood games to test the defences of the Golden Palace. Each subject will be asked a series of questions that should help reveal their true intentions. The first question asked to both subjects is, how would you get in to the Imperial Palace?
I'm gonna wear my armour, but I'm gonna wear a disguise over the top of my armour.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go to try to sneak my way through the front door.
You're gonna try to do the blag. You get to the huge golden gates for the Imperial Palace. It's heavily guarded by custodians checking people's idents for every citizen who wants to make it into the inner walls. Do you A, go straight up to them looking for a fight, or do you B, examine the people for some kind of clue as to how to get in?
B. Look for a clue.
You examine the people going in and see a couple standing off to one side. They are concealed from the custodians at the door and present an opportunity for you to perform a silent takedown and steal their clothes. Do you steal the clothes of A, an exotic meat dealer looking to deliver some meats for the Lords of Terror? Or do you B, steal the clothes of a piano tuner coming to fix a noble's piano?
I think I'll have me some meat.
Okay, you're gonna go for the meat dealer?
Yeah.
Okay. You swoop down and deliver a karate judo chop to the back of the neck of the meat dealer, rendering him unconscious. But just before he goes down, you hear him shout, "Crikey!" in like an Australian accent. You put on all his gear and make your way up to the door. The custodes look at you up and down in a suspicious manner.
All right, exotic meat dealer Jim.
One says, frowning and looking at you. You realise it's up to you to respond, but what accent are they expecting?
Well, I'll be like, "G'day, mate."
Yeah, and
Bonza, yeah.
And the custode looks at you and he's like,
and what are you doing here? What, meat dealer Jim? Is it that time already?
It is indeed, mate. Got a whacking great sack on here on my shoulder. Got some kangaroo.
Kangaroo, wow, that is a delicacy, they say.
And they let you in. Kangaroo is most definitely the favourite of some noble. We put the same question to our second subject, the mysterious Korean man known only as Koreany, and this is what he said when we asked him how he would gain access to the grounds of the Imperial Palace in our hypothetical blood games.
I think I'd dig a hole.
Okay, dig a hole. That's a good choice. Let's come in from the unsuspected way. Okay, so
yeah, well, I think I've learned from watching things like Trigons on the battlefield. They're popping up. That's how you surprise people.
No, it's true. The surprise attack. Okay, you see a manhole and you jump down, believing it would be a good place to start your subterranean journey. After some looking around, you eventually find what looks to have been some kind of crude dig site. Unusual for it to go unnoticed so close to the Imperial Palace. A real slip in security. Do you A, go and investigate the dig site, or do you B, make a mental note of for the subterranean tunnel servitor team to give them a bollocking when you get back? The tools look like shit at first glance anyway.
I've got to go and poke around that dig site, I think.
Okay, go and poke around. Curiosity got the better of you, eh? Okay, cool. Let's have a look, shall we? You go to investigate the dig site. A bunch of crude and rusty tools lay on the ground. Pickaxes, drills, that kind of thing. You pick one up, thinking at least it's a start to get your digging progress going. But then you turn around, and you see 3 lumpy men stood before you. You get ready to fight, gripping your pickaxe, but one step forwards and says, Wait, don't fight, listen to us for a second. Do you A, silence him with a pickaxe to the face, or B, listen to what he has to say?
I find these guys convincing. They've asked politely. I'm a custodian. I've got nothing to fear. Or am I? Not sure. I'm going to listen to what they have to say.
Okay, cool. Good. Diplomacy. We've already said what a useful weapon that can be. So let's see, shall we? Okay, so cool. They take you down to their frankly surprisingly well-stocked lair and tell you about a 4-armed god. They say that there's something different about you. They show you some literature about a cool-looking guy with 4 arms. It goes against everything you have been taught. But what's that stirring deep down inside you? All you have felt for Xenos until now is hate, but what is this new feeling? Is it A, more, deeper hate? It's time to kill every last motherfucker in the building. B, start to feel a grudging respect for these Xenos scum? Or is it C, is this what you've heard referred to as love?
Ooh. It's a tough one, because initially it was a strong feeling in my belly that I thought might be purge, but it's definitely angling more towards love, Stoney, if I'm honest.
Love. Oh, well, that's nice.
It was a mistaken feeling. Yeah.
Well, that's nice. Bet you didn't wake up this morning thinking, in your custode bed, thinking that you were going to find love in a sewer or down in Terror. So, that's nice. Good.
I've always thought if I could actually see the Emperor past the bright light, he probably does have more arms than most people. He's a super being.
Yeah, good points. All valiant points.
As you can see, our subjects have taken 2 very different paths, but their stories weren't over yet. Let's rejoin Matt as he creeps through the halls of the Imperial Palace, dressed as an Australian meat trader.
You creep through the halls and passages like a silent shadow, dodging patrols and ducking servitors until you eventually reach the inner palace. The throne room is not far now, but its heavily guarded door stands between you and the next stage of your journey. It's fitted with biometric scanners, so it would be impossible for you to trick your way in. You need to find another way. You find a vent large enough to fit in and enter. You scramble and crawl your way through the tight, stifling bends. You realise you are making excellent time. You might beat the previous record if you keep up this pace. You know you're not far now, but something seems to have caught your eye. A part of the tunnels that seems to have been crudely carved away, making a different tunnel. Do you A, ignore it and go straight to the throne room, claiming your place as the top score for the Blood Games? Or do you B, investigate this new tunnel?
Well, I may be disguised as Joe, whatever he was called, the meat seller from what used to be known as Australia. But I am forever a servant of the Golden Throne. And well, I will be investigating this weird tunnel.
Okay, so you're going to go investigate the tunnel, all right?
It's not about me. It's about the Emperor. I don't care about the time. I serve. I live to serve.
You venture off down the tunnel, eventually emerging into a room of rough design, forged from the reclaimed space in the walls. You drop to the floor, and suddenly 3 lumpy, strange men appear. Genestealer cult! So close to the throne room? You are just about to attack them when one of them holds up a claw's hand and says in a rasping voice,
Wait! We could work together!
Do you A, ignore him and execute this Xenos scum, battering his skull until it crumbles like a wet cake? Or do you B, hear him out?
I batter his head. What did you say? I batter his head.
You batter his head until it becomes like a wet cake.
Like a wet cake, yeah, I do that one.
Okay. Alright.
You batter the three cultists barehanded with ease. The room is now filled with the gore and ichor of their destruction, but this presents a bigger issue. The cult must be close, and if these scum could make it to the throne room, you don't know what will happen. Do you A, call a stop to your blood game to warn the rest of the custodies about this looming threat, or do you B, continue to get the best time award?
So things have really taken a twist in Matt's aptitude test. And now it would seem the fate of terror itself rests in his hands. But what will the mysterious Korean man known only as Koreani do when presented with a similar choice? Let's find out.
Something in your long dormant heart melts away. You have lived on terror all your life, but now you truly feel home. The strange lumpy people begin a ceremony, telling you are special and whispering gentle words in your ear. Eventually they start to pass around a goblet of steaming goopy ichor, each sipping from it. Eventually it's your turn, and you gulp from its intoxicating bitter ooze. Your new friends cheer in delight and spin you around, their hands all over you, their breath on your skin. Before you know it, they've brought you to a huge, colourful tapestry depicting a man holding the head of the emperor, surrounded by writhing tentacles and strange lumpy figures. You hear a whisper in your ear, "You are the chosen one." And you notice through the blur of intoxication that the man in the tapestry is you. How do you feel? A, disgusted by this abomination to the Emperor. This has got out of hand, but it's nothing a back alley trip to a Xenos STD clinic can't fix at this stage. It's time to end this once and for all. Or do you B? You always suspected there was something different about you. Who are you to argue with fate?
Oh, well, it's got to be B. You're right. I woke up this morning unsure of what my day was going to bring, and as the day's gone on, Stoney, I think I should be Emperor.
A journey of self-discovery. You stand swaying and giggling to your full height and yell, "I am the chosen one!" The crowd erupts in joyous screams and lifts you above your head. A hypnotic rasping horn starts to drone in a mesmerizing tune, and the beat of some drum rumbles somewhere in the crowd. You are taken to a sickly sweet-smelling room, full of heavy, lush fabrics and gold trinkets. In the corner sits the biggest, fattest gene stealer you have ever seen, a big, juicy ass
patriarch.
Normally this thing would be your enemy, but the sight of it now fills you with a deep, loving warmth. Then you see, stretched across the back wall, another tapestry. This one, a huge picture depicting you banging the gene stealer in the doggy-style position. You gulp and realise the true nature of the prophecy you have become involved in. Do you A, tell everyone you just need to go and get your pussy-eating shoes to establish a good downwards force on the slippery ground to properly satisfy the Gene Stealer Primarch, then make a run for it? Do you B, dutifully step up and grimfully fuck missionary style for a hole in the sheet to fulfill your role as bringer of the new way? Or do you C, grease the fuck up and slide straight in any angle it goes?
I'm already elbow deep, Stoney. It's got to be C.
Yeah, no, fair play. As soon as we entered the room, you'd dive straight in. The next thing you remember is riding on the back of a Carnifex, as the pit of what was once the Imperial fortress slowly fills with the half-digested biomass of your one-time companions. By your side, your one love, Jemima the Gene Stealer. The wig you got her for her 700th birthday looks as sharp as ever perched on her purple head. You give her a kiss on her grinning maw, tell her you love her, and in return she chucks you into the biomass pool to join her hive mind once and forever.
Ah, perfect ending, Stoney. And also, took us by surprise that actually the biggest threat to the Imperium is the one we forgot to talk about because they're so goddamn sneaky. It's got to be the Gene Stealer cult, right?
Well, I mean, it just in this simulation, it seemed to be what took down the Imperial Palace. So yeah, I think there's some valid points there.
But for every filthy Xenos traitor to mankind, there is a true citizen filled with the Emperor's light and ready to do the right thing. Last time we left Matt, he was wondering how to deal with the Gene Stealer cult he had just uncovered. Let's see what he decides to do.
I'm gonna warn them.
Selflessly, you return to the palace and hurriedly summon all the custodies you can, telling them of your discovery. They spring to action and descend into the underground tunnels. They were shocked to discover the size of the lurking cult, but thankfully your quick thinking has caught them off guard. and the boys make short work of them, destroying every last one and flooding the tunnels with molten lava to get any stragglers and seal it up. And even though you didn't make the leaderboards for fastest time, you will always be remembered as that cool guy that saved the world.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah, you did it, Matt.
The Australian meat seller.
The Australian meat seller. He did it for the Emperor.
And never broke my disguise.
He just started living his life.
So maybe man is just destined to fight itself eternally. For as long as we have beliefs in our heads and ideals in our hearts, we will have detractors. No one knows what became of the mysterious Korean man, or the bright-eyed Matt, but whatever the greatest threat to the imperium of man is, I think we can all agree it's definitely not Tau or Votan. Thanks for joining us on this Large Blast Podcast Investigation.